Before, we have a few minutes available to open questions and answers short session. If there is any intervention from the audience, any question to be asked to the speakers, feel free. As Mr. Cursolo recalled us, most of us will attend the dinner this evening, and tomorrow, of course, will be around, and so I don't think there are so many difficulties to explore any matter, also in a separate occasion. But if there is any general point to be made, feel free. Okay, yes, please. If you can stand up. There is a microphone probably available for you.
So I would like to ask the countries involved in this kind of comparison. If I'm not wrong, some countries that are not on the technological frontier. Correct me if I'm wrong. So what sense does it make to compare innovation parameters between countries that maybe are on a different point on the technological frontier? And the second point, I would like to ask Nicola Redi about which kind of possible new structural financing for the venture startups could be thought at this point that could evolve the venture investments. Thank you.
It is not clear who the first question is targeted to.
The first question is general. I don't know who would like to answer. It's about the countries that are not all in the technological frontier, in my opinion. What kind of sense?
You mean the comparison we made about in the different Adriatic countries? You know, for us it was a benchmark exercise, but it was necessary to identify where the issues are and how we can favor among an area that is, yes, you're right, is homogeneous, transfer of practices that could ideally go from the member states to the non-member states, but sometimes can also go vice versa, because, for example, it was mentioned before that there are examples of innovation also in service industries like tourism, like, you know, services in general, again, that can be also transferred to advanced countries. So we had the need to develop a knowledge about these areas, and we try to put these indicators in a book that we just published, and you can find also available. Yes, for us it has been a very, very useful starting point, we must say. But I leave the floor also to Nicola to complete the answer.
Well, provided that there have been several attempts to think about new financial instruments, my personal opinion is that we might take the best out of at least the three tools that I've shown at the end. So the best would be to have a sort of evergreen listed company where actually that basically overcome the time frame limitation of an investment. It's more patient capital, but at the same time gives to investors the liquidity of the investment itself. So it's easier for the investor to get in and get out of a listed company. And second is the presence within the investors of big firms, like it is in the high-tech Gründerfund. And the third point is providing not just equity investments, although it's smart money like the venture capital industry, but also provide I would say the flanking and the services that are given, an example, by either high-tech Gründerfund in terms of acceleration and mentorship by big firms, and also those provided in the Israeli system through the presence of incubator run by big firms themselves. So you do have much more smarter money than through just venture capital.
Thank you.
Any other question? Okay, yes, please.
Diego Bravar, University MIB, University Trieste, Board of Directors. I would to ask and 2 points. The first is Global Entrepreneurship Index is one of the indexes that we are using for analyzing the innovation ecosystem, I want to ask. And the second question is about the strategy of the Adriatic region. Could we say that tourism, blue economy and white economy could be a sort of strategy that are coming out? And the third is about the investors. How we can have more, what we can do for having more international private equity investors in this area that are investing. You need a strategy or you need only good companies for making this match between small cap and large cap? Thank you.
As regards the first question regarding the way we measure the innovation, attitudes, and capacities and performances in the Adriatic region, we didn't use actually the studies you mentioned, because they are much more related to entrepreneurs and let's say so human capital, the propensity of humans to start new ventures. We rather focused on pure and rough, if you want, indicators of performance in terms of innovation or input measures like R&D investments and so on. That's because we wanted to compare the Adriatic countries where we do not have data yet with those countries where we still have statistics as a benchmark exercise. The second question was meant to which one of the speakers? Okay, is there any of you that may want to say something?
Okay, I think that you mentioned especially, I think tourism as a kind of pillar or a key element inside the European strategy for the Adriatic Union. Or in general, I think that for the area, tourism is always conceived as an extremely important element because, of course, there are several countries that are also having tourism as a fundamental element of their GDP. However, what we also, and I would also put in the context of my previous experience, it's not that easy to support cooperation in tourism because very often the actors are seen in competition rather than in cooperation. So whenever also there are of course there are several efforts in trying to drive the cooperation toward sustainable tourism. So especially trying to get out of the high peak seasons, the flow of tourism, to try to support the accessibility to less targeted natural and cultural heritage areas. These are all elements that are part of the strategy. But still, we see some challenges in putting at the same table stakeholders of the different countries because, especially in the business sector, they perceive themselves as competitors rather than cooperators.
Well, let me say, the attraction of foreign investments is, let's say, a big challenge even for the Italian environment. So each country has its own peculiarities in limiting or enhancing foreign direct investments. Definitely, once you're able to have the presence of a big firm, mainly a multinational company that recognizes the value of a startup company, it's usually easier to have the presence of an international investor in that specific company. So what is relevant is to create hotspot environment where the feeling of an investor in doing an investment is, let's say, that they run less risk for not only from, let's say, technological point of view, but also from the legal point of view, etc., which is unfortunately one of the, let's say, the weak point that we do have in Italy. The reason why we are not attracting so many foreign direct investments is that we have a legal environment that is not perceived as business friendly as other environments. So I would say have the big firms leading it, and usually venture capitalists, if they're industry focused, they have the right network and they know how to bring those companies close to the premises of universities.
Okay, I thank you all for also this contribution to the discussion, and in particular now I would like to thank all the speakers for their valuable contribution.